A lot of Super Duty owners think their truck feels old because the miles finally caught up with it. Most of the time, it isn't the miles. It's a factory schedule that was written for the widest possible owner, not for the guy pulling a stock trailer down a dirt road every single day. I've had Super Duties come into my shop feeling tired, sluggish, and half worn out, and leave the same day running the way they did the year they were bought. Not because I did anything exotic, because I stopped following the book to the letter and started listening to what these trucks actually go through. Today, I'm showing you the 10 things I actually tell Super Duty owners, gas or diesel, and where that advice quietly departs from what the manual says. Ford's numbers aren't wrong, they're just written for a truck that doesn't exist. The average one. Yours probably isn't average. Step 1, oil. And I want you thinking about hours, not just miles. Ford's Intelligent Oil Life Monitor will let some of these engines run out to 10,000 miles or a year under ideal conditions. And to its credit, it does adjust down for idle time and load. It's a real algorithm, not just a mileage counter. But on a genuine work truck, I still pull that interval in tighter than the computer suggests, because I'd rather be ahead of it than trust it to catch everything a truck like this actually goes through. Engine hours matter more than the odometer on these trucks. Most owners never look at that number once. I've had 2 Super Duties on my lift the same week, one with 250,000 miles and one with 120,000. The 120,000 mile truck was the one that needed the rebuild. It had spent years running a PTO and sitting at job sites, and the odometer never told that story. If you only look at the mileage sticker on the door, you're reading half the book. If you tow regularly, plow snow, idle for work, or spend real time on job sites, I'm not waiting for the monitor. I'm changing that oil sooner, full synthetic, and I'm not apologizing for it. The filter matters just as much. A cheap filter that collapses on a cold start leaves the engine running dry for the first few seconds, every single time, and those seconds add up over years. On a brand new Godzilla specifically, I'll go one step further. I pull the first oil change early, well before the factory interval, because break-in metal from a new engine needs to come out, not keep circulating. Cut a filter open after that first short interval, and you'll see exactly why. It's not a defect, it's just what a new engine sheds while everything settles in. And there's no reason to let it keep circulating longer than it has to. Result, protected bearings, cleaner valve train, an engine that isn't quietly wearing itself in on its own metal. Step 2, fuel filters. And this is the one I don't compromise on if you're running the 6.7. There are 2 filters on this engine, one at the frame rail with the water separator, one on top of the engine polishing fuel before it reaches the high pressure pump. Ford's own severe duty schedule calls for replacing both around every 15,000 miles or 6 months. If you're running dirt roads, biodiesel blends, or fuel from stations you don't fully trust, I tell people to think closer to 10,000. Nobody's ever come back to my shop upset that they changed a fuel filter too early. Here's why I hold this line harder than almost anything else on this list. Fuel filters are cheap. The high pressure pump and injectors behind them are not. That pump is sensitive to contamination on every year this engine's been built. And if it lets go, it can send metal through the rest of the fuel system on its way out. Rails, lines, injectors, all of it. I've seen what that repair costs, and I've seen owners pay for the DCR conversion afterwards so they never have to think about it again. Fuel filters are cheap insurance. I don't gamble with injectors, and I don't want you gambling with them either. Drain the water separator at every oil change, regardless of mileage. Water in diesel fuel is the fastest way to turn a filter change into a fuel system repair, and it costs you nothing but 5 minutes to check. Result? A fuel system that never has to work harder than it was designed to, and a pump that gets to live out its full life instead of being cut short by a preventable failure. Step 3, air filter and the restriction gauge, because Super Duty gave you a tool most owners never look at. There's a restriction gauge right on the air filter housing. Ford's own guidance is to check it every 7,500 miles or every 500 miles if you're running genuinely dusty conditions. Quarries, farm roads, gravel job sites. That gauge doesn't lie to you the way eyeballing a filter can. A filter can look dirty and still have plenty of life left, or look fine and already be restricting airflow. On the gas trucks, the MAF sensor sitting right behind that filter is worth a quick clean at the same time. Dust and oil vapor coat it. It lies to the computer about airflow, and you get hesitation and rough idle that owners usually blame on something else entirely. Result? The engine breathing the way it's supposed to. Accurate data going to the computer instead of a guess. That's 3 things I see owners overlook all the time: oil, fuel filters, and air. If you want the rest of the checklist I use when I'm looking over a Super Duty, we made it free at FordScope.com. Gas or diesel, it's all there. Now here's the one most owners get wrong. Step 4, cooling. And on the diesel specifically, there are 2 systems to think about, not one. The diesel has more than one cooling circuit working for it, feeding the turbo, the charge air cooler, and more, on top of the main engine loop the gas trucks rely on alone. Heat is what actually kills these engines over time, not age, and under real load, that extra circuitry is doing real work most owners have never even heard exists. Watch for the same signs on either engine: coolant that looks rusty or has an oily sheen, a slow weep at the water pump before it becomes a puddle. On the diesel, don't stop at the main radiator. Glance at what's feeding the rest of the system too. Result? No overheating surprises, no warped heads, a cooling system that's actually keeping up with the work you're asking the truck to do. Step 5, batteries. And on the diesel, this is not optional information. Diesel Super Duties run 2 batteries, not one, wired together because that compression ratio needs real cranking amps to turn the engine over, especially cold. I watch the same thing happen every fall, almost like clockwork. First cold morning, the truck cranks slow. The owner says, it started fine yesterday, so he doesn't think much of it. Weeks go by. By the time the real cold hits, that 1-week battery has been dragging the healthy one down the whole time. And now he's standing next to a tow truck in a parking lot instead of his truck, wondering what changed overnight. Nothing changed overnight. It had been building for a month. Test both batteries, not just the one that's easy to reach. It's usually the one buried behind the air box that's been quietly failing while the accessible one gets all the attention. A matched pair in good condition is the difference between a truck that starts without a second thought and one that quietly builds toward a bad morning. Result? A cold start that doesn't make you think twice on the coldest morning of the year. A township near me runs a small fleet of Super Duty plow trucks, gas and diesel both. And every spring, one of their guys brings a couple in for me to look over before storm season ends and the trucks sit for months. Same story every year. The ones that got the fuel filters, the batteries, and the oil taken seriously all winter start on the first try in November. The ones that didn't are the ones I'm troubleshooting in March instead of just servicing. Same trucks, same weather, same job. The only difference is which owner treated the manual as a floor instead of a ceiling. Step 6, transmission. And I'd rather tell you the truth than promise you a quick fix. If you're running the 10-speed behind a 7.3 or a newer 6.7, Ford's own documentation covers harsh or delayed shifting on some of these, tracing back to the main control valve body. That's not something a fluid change resets. What I do control is fluid condition. Service it on schedule. Watch for a burnt smell or dark fluid, and don't wait until it's shifting badly to pay attention. If you're already dealing with harsh shifts, get the calibration and learned behavior checked before anyone starts replacing parts. Sometimes that's the actual fix. Sometimes it tells you the problem is deeper. Either way, you want to know which one you're dealing with before you spend money. Result? A transmission you're managing proactively instead of reacting to after it's already telling you something's wrong. Step 7. Check the data before you spend $1 on parts. This is where owners waste the most money on any Super Duty. Something feels off, parts get thrown at it, and 2 months later they're still paying. A basic scanner with live data costs less than one bad guess. On the gas trucks, pull fuel trims and O2 sensor response. On the diesel, An injector contribution test tells you in minutes which cylinder is actually underperforming, instead of assuming it's the whole fuel system. Result? You fix the actual problem once, instead of paying to rule out 3 things that were never wrong. Step 8. Boost and intake integrity, mainly a diesel conversation. Check the charge air cooler boots and charge pipes for oil residue or cracking, and watch commanded boost versus actual boost on a scan tool. A leak here doesn't always throw a code right away. It just quietly costs you power and fuel economy until it's bad enough to notice. On the gas trucks, this is a shorter conversation, mostly keeping the throttle body clean and making sure nothing's pulling unmetered air. Result? Full boost when you ask for it. No mystery power loss you've just gotten used to. Step 9. Drive it in a way that actually lets the truck take care of itself. On the diesel, short trips and constant idling don't give the exhaust system the heat it needs to complete a proper regeneration cycle. DEF is just a consumable at that point. The real issue is a truck that never gets hot enough long enough to finish what it's supposed to finish. Once a week, get it up to full operating temperature and hold it there for real, not just a quick errand and back home. On the Godzilla specifically, this same habit matters for a different reason. That engine runs at lower oil pressure at warm idle. And idle is exactly when certain wear happens if a truck spends too much time there. Sitting at a gate, running equipment at low RPM, long warm-ups in the driveway before the first drive of the day. That's the pattern to watch, not short trips in general. A quick errand at normal speed isn't the risk. Sitting still with the engine running is. Result? A regeneration system that actually finishes its job, and an engine that isn't quietly accumulating wear every time it sits still. Step 10. Software and calibration, the piece most owners never think to check. Ford releases calibration updates for these trucks that address specific drivability complaints: rough idle, shift quality, fuel trim behavior. A lot of Super Duties on the road are running software that's years behind what's actually available for that VIN. I'm not going to tell you a reset fixes everything. What I will tell you is that before anyone replaces a part chasing a drivability complaint, check the calibration status first. Sometimes that's the whole answer. Sometimes it just rules one thing out so you can move on to what's actually wrong. Result? A truck running on current logic instead of years-old learned behavior nobody ever reset. If this video helped you keep a little more money in your pocket, and you'd like to support the channel, hit the join button below. I'll see you in the next one.